Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We're continuing our independent football predictions today, and our next team made their first bowl game since 1960 and finished with just their 5th winning season in the past 50 years and are looking to continue that success. They are the New Mexico State Aggies. In 1960, New Mexico State beat Utah State 20-13 in the Sun Bowl. Fast forward 57 years, and the two Aggies met once again, this time in the Arizona Bowl, and this time New Mexico State also winning 26-20 in overtime, one of the more thrilling and heartwarming games of the last year's bowl season. The two teams also meet again this year in the regular season, and New Mexico State coming off one of their best seasons in recent memory, getting to 6-6, finishing 7-6 with that bowl game, their first win in a bowl game since that 1960 victory over Utah State. The Aggies returned 6 returning starters on offense and 9 returning starters on defense. On offense, they lose their top 3 playmakers. They lose quarterback Tyler Rogers, who I think if he had still been here this year, New Mexico State would be a very dangerous team. He threw for over 4,000 yards last year. They lose him. They lose Larry Rose at running back, and they lose Jaleel Scott at wide receiver, their leading rusher and their leading wide receiver. But the offense should still be okay, should still be decent. They have Matthew Romero coming in at quarterback, so it's going to be interesting to see how quickly can he fill Tyler Rogers' shoes. If he can fill it pretty quickly, this is a New Mexico State team that can certainly get back to a bowl game. They return all 5 of their offensive linemen, so that's huge for this team, and they return solid wide receivers in O.J. Clark and Jonathan Boone. So this offense is still, I think, going to be okay as long as the quarterback position can start clicking. How fast can Romero start working this Aggies offense? But defense is going to be the strength for New Mexico State this year, with 4 returning starters on the defensive line, including Cedric Wilcox and Malik Demby. So a very strong defensive line there. Most of these guys senior-led or junior-led, so a lot of upperclassmen on defense. They return 3 starters in the secondary. You've got DeMarcus Owens, Ron LaForce, and Shamad Lomax. So a very strong defensive line and a very, very strong secondary for New Mexico State this year. And like I said, I think this defense is going to be the strength of this Aggies team. And another note, New Mexico State is making the transition from the Sun Belt Conference to be an independent. So last year they were playing as a Sun Belt team, did fairly well there, going 6-6, but now they're an independent and face a little bit of a tougher schedule with some of these guys that they face. And they start off against Wyoming, and really Wyoming, they only lost Josh Allen. The Cowboys returned 17 starters, Allen being their biggest starter that they lost, a first-round draft pick going to the Buffalo Bills. 9 returning offensive starters, 8 returning defensive starters. They returned their running back in Kellen Overstreet, so if there were any problems that they have at the quarterback position for the Cowboys, I could see them being a run-heavy team this season. They return Austin Fort, Austin Conway at the wide receiver position as well as James Price. And this defensive line led by Carl Granderson is one that some analysts and some publications have picked as one of the better defenses and certainly one of the better defensive lines in the entire nation, not just the Mountain West, but in the nation. So this is going to be, once again, a strong Cowboys team, maybe even better than last year when they even had Josh Allen. So, like I said, if they had still had him, much like New Mexico State, if they had still had Tyler Rogers, this would be a really fun quarterback matchup, and they would both have solid years. But I'm going to pick Wyoming to get the win here over the Aggies, despite it being at home for New Mexico State. I just don't see them going up against this really difficult Wyoming team. Could be another solid contender in the Mountain West. So I like New Mexico State's defense. I really could see this being a defensive battle, but I think Wyoming's going to have the edge on the offensive side of the ball. Then on the road against Minnesota, I'm going to give them a loss here as well. Last year, though, almost going on the road and beating Arizona State, only losing that game by 6. So New Mexico State, had the talent last year to beat some Power 5 schools. They played Arizona State, they played Arkansas, played respectably in that game, I believe only losing 42-24. But this is a PJ Fleck-led team that if they can start getting their quarterback position working, I think we'll get back to a bowl game. That's my only concern is the quarterback position for the Golden Gophers. They have a solid running back, solid wide receivers. The defense is going to be improved. I just don't see them going on the road and getting a win over the Golden Gophers. And then at Utah State, a rematch of the 1960 Sun Bowl and last year's Arizona Bowl. Both New Mexico State wins. And I think the Utah State Aggies get the revenge over the New Mexico State Aggies. They are going to return 18 starters, including their quarterback Jordan Love, who put up solid numbers last year. And they have a very, very strong offensive line and defensive line. So this is a Utah State team that could be potentially dangerous as well in the Mountain West Conference. I'm going to give them the win here, and it's on the road. So you throw in what could be a little bit of a struggling Mexico State offense, going on the road against a Utah State team that returns 18 starters, revenge on their mind from last year's bowl loss. These factors aren't pointing up for me for New Mexico State to get a win here. But I think they snapped that streak against their rival, against New Mexico. In the past couple of years, thrilling games between New Mexico State and New Mexico. Last year, New Mexico State won 30-28. The year before that, it was a 32-31 victory for them. So they have a 2-game win streak over the Lobos. I think they may get 3 straight games. New Mexico, a team that should improve a little bit from last year, but not enough to come on the road, beat New Mexico State. That's going to once again have a very potent defense. And then on the road at UTEP, a team that Mexico State beat 41-14 last year, and UTEP didn't even win a single game. They went a perfect 0-12. So even though it is on the road, even though UTEP will be a little bit better this year, New Mexico State's going to get the win. So a win there. Now they're only 2-3. Then they go a bye week. And then they face Liberty, who's made the transition from FCS to FBS. It's always a very difficult transition. You usually don't see teams starting to hit their stride for a couple of years there. Liberty upsetting Baylor, yes, in the season opener last year. But coming off a bye week, getting this game at home against a Liberty team that I think is going to struggle in their first year in the FBS, I think New Mexico State gets a win. So now they're 3-3, back at 500. And this is the big stretch of the schedule here where they're at 500. They need to get to 6 wins, and it starts to get tough. They play actually some former Sun Belt Conference opponents. They start off on the road at Louisiana. Last year, Louisiana Lafayette defeated New Mexico State. They have Billy Napier coming in as head coach there. And this is a Louisiana team, the Raging Cajuns team, that's going to have a very, very solid offense, solid quarterbacks. And the defense, though, is my concern with only 3 returning starters here. So I like New Mexico State's defense over Louisiana's defense, but I like Louisiana's offense over New Mexico State's offense. So, I look at this game, and sometimes when I'm borderline on these games like that, I look at home field advantage, and I'm going to give the edge to the Raging Cajuns in this one because although these teams stack up somewhat similar, Louisiana has home field advantage there, and that always is a big a big factor for me. So a loss for New Mexico State. And then Georgia Southern at home. You would think that New Mexico State could get a win here. Georgia Southern only going 2-10 last season, but like Utah State, they returned 18 starters. They returned their quarterback in Shai Wertz. They have a very, very dangerous offense. We've seen the type of offense Georgia Southern has run in years past. A very run-heavy offense, but a very dangerous one at that. So despite going 2-10, I expect this team to be a lot more improved, could get to a bowl game. It is at home, but I think New Mexico State loses this game, so another loss there. But then they go back on the road, face Texas State, one of the worst teams in the Sun Belt Conference. I don't see much improvement there from the Bobcats. Alcorn State, another win. So now they have 5 wins. So sitting at 5-5, going into bye week with 2 games left to play. They just need one more win to make back-to-back bowl games. And it's on the road at BYU and on the road at Liberty. So you go to BYU, and a BYU team that really struggled last year. I didn't see them doing that great, but I don't think anyone saw them going 4-9 like they did last year and averaging just about 17 points per game. The offense was absolutely horrendous. And yes, they did have a tough schedule last year. You can contribute that to some of it, but they lost to some teams that they shouldn't have lost to, and really just put on. It was a dumpster fire. It was a bad year for the Cougars. But 14 returning starters. Tanner Mangum returns at quarterback if he can stay healthy. The defense, I think, is going to be a strength for the Cougars this year, especially with a strong secondary. So despite coming off a bye, I just don't see New Mexico State going on the road to what should be an improved BYU team. So I'm going to give them a loss here, which sets up win or go home showdown against Liberty on the road. And I know I might get criticized for this, but I'm going to give Liberty the win here. And not just because it's at home. I think Liberty, it's a season finale. They've played a whole season in the FBS. We know what they're capable of in the FCS. We know what they're capable of against some FBS opponents. Yes, they beat Baylor last year, who wasn't great, but they put up some points against some other FBS opponents as well, know how to score. And they returned 16 starters, including their star quarterback in Stephen Calvert. So this is a Liberty team that could surprise some people, not getting to a bowl game per se, but maybe 4 wins, 5 wins, somewhere around there. So it's on the road. They've played each other earlier on in the season, so they are both going to know what to expect. But I think Liberty's going to know how to exploit New Mexico State's weaknesses a little bit. They want to finish the season off with a big-time win. And I think they're going to get it. I think they're going to get it at home. I'm going to give New Mexico State a loss here. It would not surprise me by any means if New Mexico State beats Liberty in this game. Would not surprise me one bit. You've got more talent, I think, in New Mexico State, more experience at the FBS level. So it would not shock me here, especially with them being on the edge of going to a bowl game. I could totally see them winning this game. But right now, I'm going to give them a loss to the Flames. And that's going to give the Aggies a 5-7 record. Just missing out on a bowl game, but like I said, I could easily see them getting to 6-6 with a win over Liberty. I can maybe see them getting a win over Louisiana or Georgia Southern. Like I said, if they had Tyler Rogers, I would feel really, really good about this New Mexico State team. I'd feel really good about it. They had kept Larry Rose at the running back position. But as long as if Matthew Romero can get into that quarterback position quick enough, get comfortable in the pocket, and start making some big-time plays, he doesn't have to be the reincarnation of Tyler Rogers, but if he can start putting up some numbers similar, this is going to be a dangerous Mexico State team as an independent, moving from the Sun Belt to an independent. But right now, just missing out, 5-7, but would not surprise me if they could snag a win against Liberty, Georgia Southern, Louisiana, any of those I could see going the Aggies' way, and they just need one of them to get back to 6-6 and reach a bowl game for the second straight year. So a very solid year for the Mexico State Aggies, and we'll see what happens. So as always, please go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert, on Instagram at The Gridiron Expert, always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.